what our country asked of these people, of these men and women, what I personally asked of them is really hard. Again, we're in a helicopter hitting a moving vehicle. Hey man, can you shoot around the kid? And the guy says, yeah, I can. They make it look easy in the movies. That is almost impossible.
So would I have to call you lieutenant colonel or just colonel?
Boss. At the unit, they call the officers boss.
Really?
Which is
Is that
unique.
true?
I think it's because a lot of it is British off of the SAS.
Yeah.
So we're built in troops and squadrons, and it's pretty informal. So like nobody calls me sir or lieutenant colonel. It was just boss.
I like your motto, oppressors beware.
And I didn't even know that was the Delta motto. Like, De oppresso liber is the Special Forces motto, which is on everything. And Rangers lead the way is the Ranger motto.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was retired that I saw that the Delta motto is oppressors beware, which one of the issues I always had in Delta, it's 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta. It's an extension of Special Forces. And yet the Green Beret Regiment never really got their arms around it and collaborated with it until recently, So it's an extension of Special Forces.
Yeah, it's kind of wild because reading your book, you went from 82nd Airborne, you then go to Rangers, then you go to Green Beret, then you go to selection for Delta.
Yeah.
And then you're in theater, Sorry guys, that's technical for in the war. But you were a direct operator. You were CAG, right? Isn't that what you were? Combat Action Group.
That's what they called the Delta at the time.
Yeah.
And then just a minor correction. I was never in 82nd Airborne. I went straight to 1st Ranger Battalion.
Right. You talk about having legs and not legs.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I get such a kick out of just reading about this shit, but especially when I look at a guy like you, who just learned how to suffer.
Yeah.
And better than other people, I guess, and function in very uncomfortable circumstances.
Yeah.
And then I start talking to you, and I'm like, well, you were an ultra marathoner. Oh, and you're a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Oh, now the onion starts to peel, because you're like. I looked at you. You're not like built like a lot of these like dev crew guys who are just jacked out of their minds. You look like a guy who's like, you're pretty thick, but you're like a regular guy who probably. And then I'm like, oh, you guys have that extra gear.
Yeah,
and Delta's different. We were talking about this on.
Yeah, we talked on everything on the ride here. I'm curious what's left for the cameras.
Oh, we'll find stuff.
Okay, all right.
We'll find stuff.
Yeah, I think people because of this. I think we're masochists, not sadists. You know what I mean? Like we enjoy the suffering.
Yeah.
And that's how you get to where you're at.
Yeah.
We don't enjoy delivering suffering. It's it's part of the job, but to get there, it's a lot of suffering.
Well, you call yourself a monster hunter.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you've got to be a monster to be a monster hunter, but you always try to avoid that. That's what I got from you is this sort of like you could almost have called this book Shoot Around the Kids.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, because the stories you tell. So what you guys should know about this book, and I want to get into why and how you wrote this. Jeff basically saw a lot of action, more than almost, you guys in Delta, it's like, I don't think, somebody's talking about how there probably have never been in a time of war so few men doing so much fighting.
Yeah.
And to be really specific, so few men doing so much killing. Yeah. Which is what war is about. And for such a long period of time.
Yeah, I added it up. I have 5.5 years like on the ground in theater. That's
insane.
And that's a lot of fighting.
That's insane. That's so much fighting. I wouldn't even know, but I that's not ever been the way it's done. And you weave in all these stories that I've read, a lot from the Old Testament.
Yeah.
Not just the New, but the Old. And that was what I've never seen done in a book before. You wove it in seamlessly because you were always carrying those stories with you, and it felt like that was your guide. That was what led you through, and how you kept yourself together through this stuff.
Well, I think of two things on that. One, you're in the Middle East or Afghanistan, and you're in warfare. So I was just drawn to the Old Testament. Like I'd read those stories of the Old Testament, and they were more comfortable and familiar than reading the New Testament. you know, and the things that Yeshua talked about. So I'd be home and I'd read the New Testament and the Gospels, and then I'd be overseas and I would read the Old Testament, you know, and it was I found that interesting. And then I think the other piece of it is that it's just part of me. We talked about this. Like my faith is part of me. We have this thing we called religion. Nobody cares about religion. Like religion has done as much good as it's done bad, or maybe that's lopsided. But faith and belief and ancient systems and scriptures and writings, man, don't turn your back on that stuff.
Well, the Old Testament is in many ways one long war story.
Yeah.
It's one long struggle.
Yeah.
Right? Of the Israelites turning their back on God and then coming back to it, but it was always put to the test. It was always, you were always going to fight somebody, and you were usually outnumbered.
Yeah.
Which was your experience.
And then when we have the New Testament, and it's talking about Jesus and the disciples, but then we end with Revelation. Like we're going back to that. You know, like when the end times come, that's going to be some Old Testament stuff, man. Yeah. Like it's going to be warfare and bloodshed and and then we're going to see.
I'm finding you, dude. I'm going to go out to Oregon. I'm going to be finding you. Jeff, it's Bryan. Dude, teach me what to do.
Can you imagine like slaying these beasts when they come back? Like,
look at your eyes.
I don't know if I want
your eyes.
I don't know if I want to die and come back and like some new supernatural body to do it, or just have this old man be like, I'll do it. Bring it. I mean,
well, do you miss the intensity of being in the theater?
I do, but I have to caveat that with you can't miss things like that. Like we get older, and you move on. So I miss it, but I'm also very pleased to be in this place of wisdom and experience where I can write about it now, and I can share it with young guys and help them learn what I learned, and maybe they can avoid a little bit of the suffering. Suffering has to be part of it. There's no question. Yeah. But I like this position in life. I mean, it's
nice.
It's the been there, done that, and I'm ready to share.
Well, Delta's always been, the unit's always been really good at secrecy.
Yeah.
And you guys were always the quiet professionals. And you guys look different in a lot of ways than the SEAL Team 6 guys. You are different. It's different. I know that it's a similar job, but it's also different because you guys focus on different training. When you wrote this book, did you have to get it approved?
I did. So I sent it into the unit to get approved. And you know, the things that they're really looking for is operational security, where you're not
tactics.
Yeah, tactics or equipment. And there were versions where I went back, like I named names in one of the versions. I got a little bit more specific on some of the tactics because when I was writing this, it was cathartic. Like I didn't realize. I mean, there's a few things I share in there that I learned when I wrote. You know, like I guess I didn't realize that about me when I was that age, or this or that. So there was a catharsis with writing. And having to put it through the unit helped me clean it up and make it generic enough where it wasn't violating anything secrets wise. And the byproduct of that was you could relate to it more because I wasn't using, you know, certain nomenclature or ideas that you just weren't familiar with.
Yeah, but what I'm impressed with you, just talking to you for the past hour as we were driving here, and I never would have called this, but you are fascinated. You're essentially an intellectual. And you're fascinated with the big questions and the big ideas. And that's what I think is really interesting, because your command of history, your understanding of trends, your understanding of how ideas moved us backwards or forwards is stuff that, you know, we had a really deep conversation about.
Yeah.
And I'm always impressed with an operator, a tip of the spear guy like you, who had to do that for so long, which was so specific.
Yeah. Yeah, I think most of us are like that. I mean, they think of us as these Cro-Magnon men, but really it's more of that Renaissance guy. Something popped in my head that I wanted to share with you. There was a point where I was like, do I want to keep doing this? Because it was a strain on my family, you know. And it was around the same time where I realized we're not going to win these wars. We're just going to fight them. Like, am I happy with that? Am I happy just with fighting?
You realize that?
Yeah, And I came to the conclusion, I'm happy with fighting, you know? So one night I woke up and I was flipping through channels. Remember Charlie Rose? Charlie Rose was on, and I loved his round table. And again, it was that dialogue where he I mean, you could talk about art and literature and politics and all this stuff. And there was this beautiful ballerina, and she was around 40, I think, maybe not that old, but she had aged out of it. And
was it Kelsey Kirkland?
No, I can't remember the woman's name. But I'm listening to them, and she's talking about the potential of dance. So she had gone through the suffering of being a dancer, and she has come out on the other side, and she's not done because she understands the potential of dance. And I'm sitting there late at night watching that, and this beautiful ballerina is speaking to me, and that's when I decided I'm not done, because I understand the potential of war. I understand these aspects of insurgency and counterinsurgency and counterterrorism and politics by another means. And I made the decision to stay in. And here's what's funny. I've gone back to try to find that interview, and I have found the woman. I can't remember what her name is, but I've seen that interview, and she never says what I'm telling you.
What?
Yeah.
What?
I've watched the interview 10 times. She never says what I would swear to you under oath I heard her say. And it's one of those things that's so
crazy.
I still can't explain.
I bet you were falling asleep, maybe. Who knows?
I don't know. Yeah.
I've had those experiences.
You know?
Wow.
And
wow.
Is it a God thing? Is it something that's rational?
You filled in the gaps. That's so interesting.
Yeah. But it was. I remember I was lying in bed with my wife, and my boys were still pretty young, and that's when I decided I'm just going to continue to fight. And how we ended our discussion in the car is, I'm still a Green Beret, I'm still a Delta Force operator. I'm just a singleton now with a new enemy, and it's these child abusers, these child predators.
Yeah, you do. Your organization fights sex trafficking,
Yep.
and stuff like that. And you've been doing that for 8 years.
Yep.
What's the name of the
Skullgames.io.
So guys, skullgames.io, they're always looking for funding.
Yeah.
And they caught 16 people last month, 8 people the month before that.
Yeah.
And you were telling me how you do it, which is amazing.
Don't
working. Tell anybody. I don't want any fucking, hopefully none of those people listen to this, but yeah, but where can they give, where can they donate?
Skullgames.io, right? On the website.
Skullgames.io.
So .io is one of those, I don't even know what you call that, not a .com or .org, because it's part of our spirit. We're small, we're efficient, we're a startup, we innovate. So that's really personal. We harness technology to get beyond these guys. And that's where the name Skull Games comes from. There's Iceberg Slim was a famous pimp, and he's known to have said, pimping isn't a sex game, it's a skull game. And when you understand that, the pimps and the traffickers, it's not sex to them. Sex is what you see, but it's the control, and it's the game and the manipulation. And that's to me how warfare is. You see warfare, but there's much more behind the scenes. So we are trying to get in their head and beat them at their own game.
I still can't figure out, like, what do you think it is about your childhood, your past, that gave you the tools to become an operator, a Delta operator? Because there's a certain physiology we talked about. Who knows? Like, you can run for 100 miles, which is fucking weird. But, there is something about that, right?
Yeah.
That you have a backpack of endurance. You might be built a certain way where you can deal with the cold better. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the answer. I think there's something else going on. Like the idea that you can, what do you think it is about, if you could bottle or list the things you're looking for in a Delta operator, that tip of the spear operator, versus everybody else. Is there any way you could quantify it? Is there any way you could write it out as a list?
I think I would say perseverance is probably the number one term, because what's wrapped in perseverance, in order to persevere, you have to suffer. You have to have failed. Suffering and failing breeds humility, So I think there is a perseverance that is just in every operator.
Yeah, but you guys can't fail. In other words, with selection and stuff, it's really easy to be like, you didn't make it, dude, see ya.
Yeah.
So what is that about? Like you said something, I don't even know if you can talk about it. We can cut it out if you can, but you were saying if somebody's too muscular, if they're too smart, you guys are looking at them going, I wonder if I wonder if you're coachable. I wonder if you're a little too cocky, right?
Because you're building a team. So after you go through selection and the operator training course, you're coming to a team, and that team has a set of plays. It's like going to an NFL team. You know, like you've got the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, but he doesn't fit into any of the NFL teams. He's one of the best quarterbacks in college ever, but he doesn't fit. You know, or so that's how we're looking. And when you have different squadrons and different troops, so there are personalities in each squadron. There's personalities in each troop. So when you are going through the training and they're looking for, hey, where is Bryan the best fit with his physical abilities, his interests, kind of who he is. So they try to place you into these positions. And there is even like a draft where people will sit around because they're able to watch you after selection for the training course. They're able to watch you for a little over a year.
Oh, they are.
And because they're seeing who you are and where your strengths and weaknesses are. So they will sit down and they'll say, I want Jeff, I want Bryan, I want this guy, I want that guy. And they will negotiate like a draft to bring you over.
Is social intelligence an important thing?
I think it's through the roof. And those guys that have a lower social intelligence make up for it in something.
Because I thought about that when you and I started texting. I didn't even know you, but you were cracking me up. You were just joking, and I was like, "This guy's fucking." But you're used to. Me and Jeff are taking a piss, and Jeff, I've known him for 1 hour, and Jeff just goes. He looks over at my dick. He goes, "All right, bigger than I thought."
Yeah. For those of you that are out there listening, it's bigger than I thought.
So that's all I care about.
I feel it's my duty. To
let the people know.
To let the people know. Speak truth. And it's not big enough to be a threat or anything to be afraid of.
Excuse me, sir. He'd also been stifled in these tight jeans for a long time. So you got to give him a chance to breathe. He hadn't even fucking taken a breath yet. Yeah. So you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So I'm just not to caveat that.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Let's get off my dick for a second. All right.
I'm sure we'll get back to it.
We'll get back
before the day
We'll
is
get
done.
back to it. Let's go back to kind of like this idea of social intelligence and this idea of kind of being exact. That's what I'm fascinated with.
Yeah.
Which it's almost like whoever came up with the Delta culture was a genius, because when I hear about the way you guys are spoken about from other people, including Green Berets, SEALs, it's pretty wild, man.
Here's something that's even more genius, and I'm thinking for a second, and I'm not giving anything away. So when you go to selection, the classes that the instructors give you are memorized verbatim, and they do not come off that script. So if you're teaching land nav, you have a script that you learn verbatim, and you will sit in front of the rest of the troop and recite it. And the reason they do that, Bryan, is because they want to take out that variable of you're a good instructor and an instructor from 1992 wasn't a good one. So you're saying the exact same thing in every class that they've said from the inception of the unit. So they've removed that variable. That's the level of precision that they've put into the selection program. Because imagine if you're teaching a class and you're dynamic and you're just a great instructor, well, that's going to skew the results.
Right. That makes
sense.
So
it is a script that has been handed down for decades that the instructor will learn, and he will not vary from it. And if you as a student have a question and it isn't in that script, he won't answer it.
But when you guys, I would imagine the unit, because you're always in combat and you're always testing different tactics, I would imagine your tactics, your methodology is always evolving.
Always.
Right?
And it was before I got there. It was when they got Uday and Qusay. Saddam Hussein. That was a huge learning lesson. It was the squadron that I went to. And when they went to go get Uday and Qusay, those guys were up on the second floor and they were dropping hand grenades down, and they had a machine gun offset, and we were taking casualties. And it was early in the war. It was 2004. Yeah. And we were taking casualties. Guys were getting scuffed up. And the story they tell is they're sitting there kind of regrouping, like licking their wounds, repacking, ready to go back up. And somebody decided, hey, this isn't a hostage rescue. Like, why are we fighting these guys head on?
Yeah,
you know, and
because
Delta was created to be a counterterrorism hostage rescue element. So that's what the training was designed to, is we're going to close with and destroy that enemy, you know, and we're going to bust through that door and we're going to fight. And they all realized, oh yeah, we're not taking prisoners. It's Uday and Kusei and a couple of thugs. So they backed off and they dropped the building, you know, and it was.
That's one way to do it.
So that was one of the things that was taught to me, is like, look, when you go in there and you fight, and they wanna fight, then back off and drop the building. This isn't hostage rescue. If there's hostages in there, that's a whole different thing. And we even developed a TTP called the call out, where you would try to separate the women and children from
you
the
have
men.
that in the book.
You'd give them that opportunity to, like, hey, if you want to fight, great, but we don't want to harm your children or your grandma.
Yeah.
So send them out, and then we'll fight. Gentlemanly.
Yeah, man. I just can't imagine. It must have been tough transitioning into civilian life. Maybe not, because you had your wife and your children.
Yeah.
But dude, some of the stories in this book, like just being on the rooftop when people are sleeping and looking for the bad guy.
Yeah.
First of all, how the hell are you that quiet? You guys are just all in there with your night vision. And so in Iraq, people would sleep on the roofs because in the summertime. And these guys would basically just appear on the roof, and you'd be looking for a bad guy.
Yeah.
And you'd just be there tiptoeing around, and you'd be like, hey, is Muhammad here? And they'd be like, yeah, he's right over there. And you'd just be like, hey, dude, gotta wake up. Don't do anything. I'll shoot you in the fucking face. But also, I'm gonna put handcuffs on you.
Yeah.
You know, that's crazy.
So, someday, I'd like to see a movie of it that's real. You know, part of it is people will be underwhelmed.
I was going to ask you,
because without a music backdrop, you know, what I mean, without AC/DC blaring in the background, it's just a bunch of dudes going, up. You know what I mean? Like, without the suspense,
climbing a ladder,
like it's sweaty and hot. You know what I mean? And you're just really preoccupied with the moment.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But it is kind of laughable like that too, where you have these moments where, you know, it's just two guys. Like, hey, is that him? I don't know. It looks like him. His mustache doesn't look right, does it?
Guy goes, actually, the guy's mustache is bigger. Like, it's not exactly an exact science. Exactly. You got a bunch of deadly Delta Force operators, and your life is hanging in the balance on how big your mustache is. Jesus.
Yeah. I wanted to go back to one thing that you said too, because we're talking about these ideas, where your idea of shoot around the kids.
Yeah.
So I don't think I mentioned it in the book, because I think I tried to explain it in the book, but it was one of those things that was too hard to explain. But one of my favorite scenes in any comedy is from one of the Naked Guns, when Leslie Nielsen is the umpire.
You're dating yourself, but I remember.
Remember?
Yes.
So he's the umpire.
Yeah.
And he's out in the game, and he's looking for something, and a dude throws a pitch, and he ain't even watching, you know. And then the crowd's waiting, and he's like, strike, and the crowd goes wild, you know. And then the scene goes on where everything that comes over the plate, he's like, strike, and he's, you know. That's how it was. Like, the first time I said, hey, do you guys feel comfortable shooting around the kids? I was like, is this going to work? But then as time went on, it became easy. And you know what I mean? I felt like Leslie Nielsen, where I'm just like, shoot around the kids. Hey, another one, shoot around the kids.
Yeah.
You know, it's just because the proficiency of your guys, like the first time you ask them to do something, and this is the thing, this is what I miss as much as anything, is what our country asked of these people, of these men and women, what I personally asked of them is really hard. Again, we're in a helicopter hitting a moving vehicle. Hey man, can you shoot around the kid? And the guy says, yeah, I can. Thank God. I mean, they make it look easy in the movies. That is almost impossible.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to be fair too, because like, you know, all my assaulters were men.
Yeah.
But the women that worked with us, they did things that the men couldn't do.
You allowed to say that too? I
think so.
Okay, good. Let's keep it. Hey man, Delta is all about equal rights.
Yeah. Well, that was one of those things. Like when the combat arms, special forces, Rangers, SEALs, they were like, should we let women in our ranks? And the Delta guy, I'm like, dude, of course. Like, Don't rewrite the book. Like, we've been doing it for
the Israelis do it.
We've been doing it for 30 years. Like, there is a place, there's a system, there's a process.
Of course, women can get into places men can't get into.
Precisely.
You know, that's the Israelis figured that out a long time ago. How much? Do you have any idea of how much Delta and took from the SAS and the Israelis, or is it just all? Who knows, right?
Oh, we surpassed them rapidly. I think we took a bit of an ethos and ideology from the SAS, and definitely are the way that we work. But we're so big and well funded. I mean, when we were fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan, we'd have the Brits attached to us because the SAS are expected to do everything.
Yeah.
The SAS are their Ranger, Special Forces, Delta Force, FBI, HRT. Like they're expected to do everything, whereas we break all that up into special units.
Yeah.
So our big exchanges are with the Israelis, the Australians, and the Brits, probably more than anybody. And we learn from each other's strengths and weaknesses.
So you wrote this book, and there are these stories that you equate with the Bible.
Yeah.
Like David. David was the first sniper, right, when he killed Goliath, which is really cool because you got the sling here with the 5 stones.
Yeah.
You chose 5 stones, which is very significant. Were you thinking about those biblical stories when on your operations, or has this all been sort of something that you thought back on when you wrote the book?
Definitely not on an operation. Because there is so much happening. You're constantly thinking about what next. There's a really cool quote that I learned when I was a young lieutenant, and it was by Hal Moore, who was from We Were Soldiers Once and Young. And he said a good leader in the middle of an operation will continually ask himself, what am I doing that I need to keep doing or do more of? And what am I doing that I need to stop doing? And I think that counterintuitive of what am I doing that I need to stop doing?
Yeah.
That's something that people don't think through.
Yeah.
And this was our discussion on the way over. The Bible is filled with things of, hey, these are things you should be doing, and probably more of that. And then there's a bunch of things you probably need to stop doing.
You're definitely fucking up, and you know that, right? You were saying that, like if you, I think one of the things about the Old Testament is the characters are so flawed.
Yeah.
But it was also like, you can do it.
Yeah.
There's going to be a price, bro.
Yeah.
Like with everything in life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that you don't have to jump straight to hell and damnation. It's like, no, in your life, in this body,
life will teach you.
You're gonna pay.
Yeah, I remember there was a young guy who did stand-up. Stand-up's beautiful because it'll just teach you. It never gets easy, and you had a good special. Now write another one.
Yeah,
and it never ends. And so there was this young guy who he had a lot of potential, and he was very funny, and he did it. It was his first time. And he did a really funny 5 minutes. And all the people around me were like, God, that guy's going to be amazing. And I kind of said, listen, if he sticks with it for 10 years, he'll be good.
Yeah.
But stand-up will teach him very quickly that 5 minutes, that was cute. That was a good time. Did a great job. He has potential. But it doesn't care about that. Like nothing. It's like it ain't going to get you through. It's like anything else.
You just described Delta. So the guys are older. An officer takes at least 8 to 10 years to get there. An NCO gets 4 or 5 years to get there. So it's the same thing. Hey, you were a good Ranger. That was cute.
Yeah.
Hey, you were a good Special Forces guy. That was cute.
Yeah.
Now this is it. Like this is the big league.
And the big league, by the way, correct me if I'm wrong, is a verb. Like you're always, as a Delta operator, you were that was great. The last mission, shit's changed on the ground.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's also, I think you can draw parallels to what you do because you're a pro. That's the thing that people don't think about. They always think about these, the draft army or these young. That was my profession. Like it's all I did. I studied it up one side and down the other. And when it worked, it worked. So when you're writing a bit and you test it on an audience, when you go do it for real, you know it's going to work. You know the timing. You know how to pull it out. And here's the other thing that when it doesn't work, you immediately go back after the show and there's like, what did I miss?
Because the audience lets you know right quick. Too.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing is like, the other thing that happens is like, now I'm writing my 5th hour of comedy and I'm pretty much ready to go. But the biggest challenge is not repeating yourself. The biggest challenge is not revisiting the same themes you're hung up on and then just being a different version of the same old shit.
Yeah.
So you've got to figure out a way to shake up your mental paradigms.
Yeah.
And that's the only way to do that, as far as I can tell, is to do things that are difficult. Try new skills, try new things that get you out of your comfort zone, read different things. That's
Dude, you're talking about special ops.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing, you know. So just like someone watches you go out on stage and you've got 50,000 people and they're like, how can he do that? How can he be so calm? What? Because you've practiced and you've rehearsed it. That's like warfare. Like they're thinking about the fight itself. But man, we've got our 10,000 hours of practice in, and we know it's going to work. And when it doesn't work, we're back to the drawing board of, hey, what did we miss? And then even your idea of changing it up, you basically have a style that has to work, right? Like your arc of comedy, there's a process, there's a formula that you have to stick in.
Yeah.
But then you've got to change it up, and that's what a good special ops unit does. Also, is you've got this formula you need to stick in, but man, you've got to change it up, and you've got to be adaptable to the crowd. So you're killing your crowd with laughter.
Yeah,
we're killing our crowd with lead poisoning.
With bullets. But when you as a guy who was a tier 1 operator like that, who had to be so exact. And you see young men who are lost. You've done it good. I love one of the things you say about your 2 sons. To my sons, what are their names?
Aaron and Jonah.
To my sons, 2 biblical names, by the way.
Yeah.
To my sons, Aaron and Jonah, with whom I am well pleased. I fucking love that. To my sons, Aaron and Jonah, with whom I am well pleased, says the Delta operator. Says the Delta operator who's been in an intimate thing with life and death. But to young men who are lost, as a Delta operator, what would you say to them? How do they get their shit together? Because there are a lot of men that need to get their shit together.
Well, first of all, a male figure in their life needs to let a young man know that he's pleased with them. They measure up.
What if they don't have that? Get a jiu-jitsu teacher, get somebody?
They need to seek it out.
Seek a teacher, seek your Yoda.
I'm coming from Mike's place, Mike Glover, with Fieldcraft Survival, and we ran a weekend course of these young men that are thinking about going into SOF, either Navy SEALs or Rangers or SF or PJs, any of these things, any branches. And there were a couple of men, and I've been around long enough, and I sat across from a young man, and I said, you don't have a strong male figure in your life, do you? And he just started crying. So this was the interview at the end. And I said, you need to find it. And these 5 or 6 men on this side of the table, that's what we're here for now. You can find it in jiu-jitsu. You can find it in these different communities. But that's one of the things that Mike is building with Fieldcraft Survival. It's what Tim is building with Sheepdog Response. We're building this cadre of men that can reach beyond their families and into their communities and say, look, you can measure up. And also the other honest truth is, hey, dude, right now, you don't measure up. You're physically weak, you're mentally weak, and here's what you need to do to get there. And that's part of why I miss what I miss from the stories in that book.
Yeah.
But I'm also at this place now where I can give it that back in a different capacity.
So important, dude. That's what I loved about the book, because it's like we all need a guide, dude. It's, if I didn't have a dad whose size 14 shoe was always about to get lodged in my ass, I was already a fuck up.
Yeah.
But there is something about having a male role model. I'm just speaking for men, And I always tell young men, if you're lost, get good at anything. I don't care if it's the guitar. I don't care if it's jiu-jitsu. I don't care. Just get good at a skill that's difficult, that you have to show up to every day.
Yeah.
Because if you have to show up to it every day, I promise you're going to find your community.
Yeah.
You're going to find excellence. You're going to face up to your own plateaus and your own shortcomings. You're going to find that there are certain aspects of your personality that are stopping you, and you've got to overcome those. right? And unless you've had the pressure cooker of something like Delta, my God, or just the military in general, you know, you won't find that otherwise, and you have to find it for yourself.
And one of the words that comes back to me a lot lately is intentionality. Why are you doing what you're doing? And if you're working out because you want big pecs or big biceps or to get the chicks, it's too shallow. If you're working out to get the most out of your body and to be a productive member of, there's this intentionality. Did you? I wanted to talk about this story with you because you just kind of flippantly said the word Yahweh in one of your podcasts that I listened to. I think it was with Mike. I think it was with the woman that's involved in the psychology of
oh yeah, Miriam.
Yes.
Grossman. Yeah.
So this is that Yahweh.
Yeah.
Had you ever heard that before?
I had, because I know that that's sort of the word you're not supposed to say as a rabbinical scholar, or that was sort of the.
But the idea that it's in everything.
Yeah, you mean in the breath?
Yeah.
So when you breathe in.
Yes. The first time I heard that, it blew me away.
It's amazing.
And that's one of those things where you and I both find a fascinating truth to Scripture and these old stories in the Bible, where we know breathing is a healing thing. It's a centering. We have yoga, and we tell people breathe, and we understand all of this. But this idea that God's name, the name we don't say, Yahweh, one of the reasons we don't say it is because it's not a name. It's not.
Well, also
a word.
Think about the awe. So if you see the burning bush, the awe. When you're awed, you breathe through your mouth. You go.
Yeah. And you just said,
see what I did?
Name. Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
So that's what I think is pretty amazing. Whether that's whether it's true or not, I love it, and I choose to believe it's true.
Yeah. Well, because it makes sense.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I don't know if it's true, but it probably is, because if there's this creator, he's going to create everything.
Yes.
Where I'm inhaling, you're exhaling, and vice versa. The trees, like every single moment. So that I'm tying it back into what we were talking with these young men, is sometimes these young men, they just need to sit quietly and breathe and look for an intentionality. Who do you want to be? What do you feel called to do? And I call it Yahweh's calling you. I look to the example of Yeshua as who I follow, and Joshua and David and these men from these ancient scriptures. But man, they just need to find somebody that they can aspire to be like.
Yes. Well, that's reflection.
Yeah.
Is so important. As I get older, I start to realize that you can get to a point at 56 where you've done a lot of reading. I read a lot of philosophy, and I guess I could read more, and I could certainly read more. I love reading novels, but reflecting on what you actually know, and you know a lot more than you think you know.
Yeah.
And you certainly know the truth. You know what you're supposed to do, and you know when you're not doing what you're supposed to do. You learn that very, very early.
Yeah.
If you really pay attention. But the rest is denial, isn't it? It's just really easy to kind of bargain with your creator or whoever. I get very interested in, I'm not so concerned with trying to prove the existence of some, metaphysical truth. I just look around me. When you start to reflect and dissect what it is about a guy like yourself, why do you have the credibility? You read a book. Mike Glover calls me and says this Delta Force Lieutenant Colonel wrote this book, and you should have him on your podcast. I immediately go, yes. But it's not because of all the, oh, cool, he's a Delta guy, that's all. But what am I admiring? I'm admiring something like an extreme winner. Because what is that? What is the definition of that? A guy who separated himself from everyone else, who was willing to put himself through the sustained periods of pain and deprivation, who is willing to kind of like push on the heaviest door, and pushed for a long time and it wouldn't open. Because anytime you want to get to something really deep understanding, something that's worth it,
There's a few heavy.
it's a
doors that
motherfucker,
are
man.
hard
It's a
to-
motherfucker. Yeah, you got to burn some granite walls down, and good luck with that, you know. But that really is what it is. And then and then I think I also know I'm going to have a good conversation with a guy like you, because I don't think it's possible to go to reach the tip of that spear without understanding a whole bunch about life in general. High social IQ, working as a team, understanding human beings, not just your own comrades, but the enemy as well.
The enemy.
You know, there's things I love about Tim Kennedy. I spent the past 5 days with him about a week ago. That dude can talk to you about anything. And more importantly, like you, he's interested in everything. He's just interested in everything.
Yeah.
That's the kind of shit I like being around.
Yeah.
Because I can figure shit out with him.
It's because it's all interconnected, and we spend so much of our time trying to divide all these pieces. We were talking about tribalism.
Yeah.
Oh, you're in this camp. You do this. You believe. It's all interconnected. The entire world. All of these thoughts and these ideas and what's come before us and where we're at now. And I'm excited for the next generation. I am not some old fuddy-duddy. I am pleased with my sons. I am pleased with what I am seeing. We're highlighting a bunch of the weaknesses that are out there, but there's a lot of young men and young women that I think are going to bring about a renaissance.
Really? That's good to know.
Because we've left them with what?
Yeah, you're right.
We've left them with nothing. We're at the point where we are questioning if there are two genders or not. Like we've left them with no
Confusion.
base. And that's where, even if you don't want to adhere to some sort of one of these faith traditions like you and I have in Judeo-Christianity, it's something you should explore, because it is a bedrock of humanity and mankind from the time we were able to start writing things down. And for you just to know that and understand that, and wherever you diverge from there, have at it.
You're going to believe in something, right?
Exactly.
So make sure you know what you're believing in. Take a look at that. Reflect on that.
Yeah.
Right? Reflect on what you're believing in and why. And that's what I spent a lot of time doing.
Yeah.
You know, but with you, you've seen a lot of up close and personal death. You've walked into places where the men that you were hunting were going to shoot back, and you probably had to do what you had to do.
Yeah.
You know, to look in someone's eyes right before you do what you have to do. What is that done to you in terms of, like, a lot of people would lose their faith, wouldn't they? A lot of people would sort of or sort of come out of this a cynic, come out of this an addict, come out of this. How are you able to navigate this? And without getting too personal, how many bodies would you say you've seen? I mean, it's over 200. It's
a lot. It's really hard to tell.
I hate asking a personal question, but I'm trying to put context around it.
Yeah, it's
a lot. You've seen a lot of death.
One thing I would say, and I think people, I don't think I write about this, but I found myself talking about this a couple times over the last couple days, where when you're in this physical, even when I was a young ranger, and I was maneuvering guys, you know, we didn't have radios. You yelled to the guy, shift left, move right. You know what I mean? You're yelling, and that act of yelling, so I can communicate, it gets you kind of amped up. Now we all have radios, so I talk to you like this. We're taking fire from, front left. Jim's down, Bill's down. I think Martin's down. We're going to have to get some reinforcements. Like, that's how we're talking on the radio now. So part of it is the technology has allowed you to stay calm. Mm-hmm. Part of it is that training, and when you're in a fight, when you're in a hand-to-hand fight with somebody, it is so consuming. It's not personal. You're not really thinking, oh, this guy's going to kill me. You're not. You're thinking, what do I need to do? What is he doing? What do I need to do? Same thing with dropping a bomb on somebody. It's very impersonal. You drop a 500-pound bomb, a 1,000-pound bomb on a compound. it's not personal. And then maybe you come in after that bomb and you do battle damage assessment where you're looking at the parts of all these people. It's really not that personal. But when you're taking a sniper shot and you've got that human, you've hunted. Like that deer, that animal is right there. And you're watching them and you're sitting there. That is the time that I have felt a personal touch with my enemies. Otherwise, there really is a disassociation because there's so much.
Well, what about your relationship to life and death? Has it made you less afraid of death? Were you already? Did you? What was the mental process you would go through before you went out on mission?
There came a time where you just accepted you might die doing this, and you're okay with that. And these other guys that I'd love to talk to who never came to terms with that, they're probably the guys having problems. You know, all of the people that I know of, and it'd be interesting to hear from some of them that I worked with, they realized, hey, we could die doing this, and that's okay. And it's because of the pursuit itself. We loved what we did. You know, and I think that might be what is happening to some guys is that guilt of like, I sacrificed these relationships. I sacrificed parts of my body. I sacrificed parts of my friends just so I could be a warrior.
Yeah.
Yes, you did. And there is maybe a little bit of guilt with that, but you have to understand that as the nobility and the loyalty and the honor that really kind of overrides all that. Worth it.
You know Tom Bigley? He was in the unit.
I did. I've met him. He's
a good buddy.
He was on his way out by the time I came in.
Tom's a good buddy.
Great reputation.
Love that dude. And Tom said to me one time, I was already dead. It's like, I just go through this thing where I was like, I'm already dead, so I'm going out there to do my thing. I was like, damn.
Well, and I think, again, that's what's nice about writing the book is I don't think we ever really talked about that. You just kind of come to those terms. And I remember there were a couple times, because we're such small elements, you know, we're 10, 18, maybe 25 guys of a Delta assault element, which is, it's pretty small. And we'd go in after somebody, and I remember sitting around the table with the team leaders, we would call it the war council, and you'd basically look around and say, are you guys ready to do the village? Because it's like this is it. We're going in, we have no help, and we might end up having to fight the whole village. And sometimes, you know, you'd be like, Jeff, I'm just not in the mood. I'm just not, you know, I got diarrhea.
Can you not be dramatic?
And guys, they have that veto power. If some of the team leaders were like, man, let's set the conditions. Let's not do the village today. Most of the troops I had were like, let's do the village.
But older guys.
We're just like, let's not do the whole village. Let's just do this part of the village. Guy. You know what I mean?
Guys, I haven't had my coffee. Seriously.
And that is the discussions. It's like, let me have a coffee and a quick nap, and then we'll go do the village. But you know, but in hindsight,
we're so human.
But in hindsight, I think, I mean, I'm having this epiphany with you sitting here right now. It wasn't just, are you guys ready to potentially fight the whole village? It was like, we're about to bite off a lot, and somebody might get scuffed up. And are we all agreeing that this is worth it? That not the target himself, but this adventure we're about to go on, are we all agreeing that we don't mind losing a limb for this or getting scuffed up?
Damn.
You know? So I'm having that epiphany right now. Like, it was kind of, you know, the phrase was, are you guys ready to do the village? But it really was, odds are not necessarily where we can get them, but I want to go fight. Do you?
Yeah, you have some beautiful moments in the book, man. Like one, I got kind of emotional.
When I was talking about your mom?
When you were talking about my mom, the pictures were what got me emotional.
You didn't know I had those.
Pictures kind of turned me on, to be honest. So I realized I'm a sick fuck. But when you were talking about that Green Beret where the truck crushed his body, and you were, the first thing, you know, you were saying whenever somebody is really gravely injured, is the first thing you're taught to say is you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And then you have to if you can get him help within the hour, apparently that's the life and death thing.
Yeah.
But you knew he was probably gone, and you were trying to breathe for him.
Yeah.
And then you said that you saw him standing there.
Yeah.
And he said, "It's okay. It's okay, Jeff." That was powerful shit.
So a couple things with that. You practice CPR. I mean the training that we do, medical training, is pretty high level. You know, we can do a lot of stuff to save ourselves and save our buddy. But with him,
Yeah, Tim Kennedy tied a tourniquet on me.
yeah,
Like I didn't even ask for it. We were sitting on this plane, and he just reached over and ties the tourniquet, and I was like, that really hurts. And he's like, "Got to check you for your pulse," and he couldn't find a pulse. He goes, "You're good."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Well, I'd rather get shot than have this fucking animal tie me."
And you would carry 2 tourniquets, one for yourself, one for a buddy, you know, that type of thing. Well, when this happened, the vehicle rolled over on his chest. So I go to do CPR, and he had no chest. It was like a smashed bag of potato chips. And I'm starting to do the pressure, and it sounded like a smash, you know, bag of potato chips. So you're like, "Oh, I don't know what to do now." Like I never trained on that. I go to go CPR, and there's just all sorts of fluid, you know, but it was a scenario I wasn't trained for. So there are things where it makes you pause, and I was confused. I didn't know what to do next. And that's when he like appeared to comfort me, where he was like, "It's okay. There's nothing left to do."
You saw him.
And I saw him.
Damn.
And the angels that were standing next to him. And I think I write about in the book, finally when some people show up, some medics show up, they start working on him. And it made me mad, because I was like, he's right there. He's
gone, man.
He's gone. Like let it go. So yeah, that was one of the few times in my life that I very, very visibly saw that spiritual realm. God allowed me to see it for some reason, maybe to share it with you today. And then the other thing that is heavy still is it was a death that didn't have to happen. You know, I was out there with an ODA.
What's an ODA?
Operation Attachment Alpha. So I was in 10th Group, and we were out there fighting every single day in a town called Samara. This was back when Fallujah, everyone knows about Fallujah. Samara was a town not far from it. And I felt like we were fighting our own little war. Like my bosses didn't understand, and they didn't understand what was required to succeed. And the barbarism was going through the roof. This was 2004 when Al Qaeda was really starting to seize its stranglehold, not by enticing people, but by forcing people. So there was a real disconnect in what I felt like I was doing in this little place where we were fighting, and my boss is back on these giant forward operating bases. And our team was hanging it out there, and we did something that one of my bosses didn't like. So he had called me back to get an ass chewing. And that was it. So from where I was in Samara to get to Tikrit to get my ass chewing, that's all Indian country. Like that was running the gauntlet. And I'm still coming to terms with that disconnect. What was I just too proud of? I was a captain. Was I too proud of was I not communicating? Did I not understand? You know, and these men that I write about in this book, I would love to have these discussions with them. That 2-star officer that I talk about, this guy was a major. He was my company commander. I'm hoping that they're processing this stuff from their point of view.
That you think I would imagine most of the people in the unit will read your book.
I hope because so few of us write books, there is a stigma to it. Just the fact that I have my name on it and it says Delta Force.
Yeah,
operator.
You're going to get some shit from
there's certain people that are going to say fuck this guy.
And you were
but
okay
I hope
with that.
we can get past that. Well,
yeah, I don't think. But see, I think this book had so much. I don't know, man. It's almost a prayer.
Oh,
you know, that's how I look at it. This book's a prayer. You know, it's yeah. So
boy, are you amazing?
Well,
that
I am, but only athletically. But you know, I kind of took some. But so I think that you'll be okay in that sense.
Yeah, I think I agree.
I took it that way.
I took the risk for the short-term angst for the longer term gain.
Yeah.
Because what we went through, other guys are going to go through, and somebody's got to put it. Dude, it is a prayer.
It is a prayer. That's the first time it came to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad.
The
I want to read
comedians.
A page. Yes, I'm very deep with a big dick. Page 13. Easter eggs.
Oh.
I've watched men die, some of them by my hand. Many more of them were by my command. Every man dies differently. Some go quietly and some thrash about, refusing to surrender until death finally demands their last breath. I've cut many evil men's lives short. Some of them were surprised to see us. Others seemed relieved to see us, almost as if they were expecting us, welcomed us. They knew their story was ending. They could feel it. There were times I felt like the Grim Reaper, or more like the commander of a troop of Grim Reapers. It was a role I relished, I was good at it, and I dedicated my life to it. Life as a soldier comes at a cost. Many parts of my body are broken, and I have lost many friends. I grew distant from my parents and barely stayed connected with my brothers and sister. My wife was forced to raise our sons mostly on her own. She protected them from the reality of the ever-present threat of death that hung over their dad. Both of us did our best to seamlessly flip between the many complicated roles we were expected to play, and so far we've survived. We've made it to the other side, battered and bruised, but mostly intact. I love that. I don't know why, but I just love that, and I earmarked a bunch of those pages, man. I thought were really, really, really
because,
cool.
brother, in your own journey, you've done the same.
Yeah, man. You and I I haven't been through what you've been through, but I'm an older man. I'm 56. I've lived a life. And I've spent a lot of time chasing the things that don't matter.
Yeah.
Right? And I've made a lot of mistakes. But I think I'm learning from them.
You're
surely.
still here.
Yeah.
And there's time.
Yeah, and that's why I just thought this book was, I don't know, I really, really enjoyed it. And that's why I couldn't stop reading it. See, it was long. You fucker. It's 574 pages. I'm like, hey, dude, I'm busy as shit. But then the problem was I was on the plane and I couldn't put it down. I was familiar with all the stories from the Old and New Testament, but
yeah.
It was also the stuff that you were kind of talking about. Can you talk to me about Shavruta learning?
Yeah. So that was one of those things that I was going to write a Shavruta compliment. So what I hope over time that this book, this prayer, becomes almost something to prompt discussion. So there's this old Jewish tradition of when you read something and you read something over and over, there's only so much you can get from it. Mm-hmm. And then you sit down with a group of people, 5, 6, 8 people, and you read it again and you share what it means to everybody. So you just read something to me, and then the next piece was what did that mean to you, or how did you share that? So I really do want to encourage people to, once they get through the book, to use it as a tool to have some of these discussions and learn from each other and these other traditions.
Well, again, to interrupt you.
Yeah.
It is the kind of book you can read like chapters of.
Yes.
And you
while
designed
you're taking
it
a
that
dump.
way.
Yeah. It's specifically
you literally
designed.
Said that to me.
One dump. Want 27 chapters,
and
20 in 1 month of good dumps.
Yep.
You can finish this book.
Eat a lot of fiber and you'll get right through this fucking thing.
Exactly.
But it's true. And each chapter kind of stands on its own as a life lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then there is this theme that runs all through it, and like I said, like I wrote in your book, the heroes are all around us, and we're dismissing them, or we're pretending they're not heroes, and we're standing someone else up. One of the I was talking to somebody yesterday, and one of the things that I'm really proud of the book is I'm not on the nose. You know what I mean? Like I try to write it in a way where you get what I'm saying, but I'm not necessarily saying it.
Well, you also leave us hanging.
Trying to.
Yeah, because you get bit by a fucking water moccasin.
Yeah.
Your forearm swells up like a football. Can you tell that story really quickly?
Yeah.
And then we'll.
Well, quickly, that process, like that, I wasn't sure if it was going to work.
It does.
Yeah, but you know what I mean?
Hey,
but
dude.
It's a
570,
got through it. Yeah.
500 some odd pages. I couldn't put it down.
Oh, so here's.
It's 600 pages. Right. Fuck.
So it seems we already cracked that seal of the fact that sometimes I see angels in the spiritual realm and this.
See, I would think it's kooky, Jeff.
Yeah.
But not when a Delta operator tells it to me, who's been that up close and personal.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's like I'm not one of those guys who's going to, all right, Jeff saw fucking angels and he saw this guy, you know. I mean, he was probably exhausted. He was probably, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. Because when I hear a dude like you start talking that way, I'm listening. I'm listening.
I appreciate that.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's funny. There's a truth you've earned. Like you can say that.
Yeah.
Hey man, can I prove that scientifically? Don't really care. I'm listening, and it gives me some comfort.
But I like what you're saying. When you're on the fringes, of pain and danger and fear and fatigue and sleepiness,
you see some shit.
And is there a biological chemical reason? I don't care either.
Not interested.
I'll just share it with you.
Yeah.
Take it for what it is.
I like the romance and I like the wonder.
I like the mystery.
Me too.
Yeah. So the other thing, I talk about Bill in there, my buddy Bill.
He killed by a rock slide.
Yes.
Yeah.
Remarkable man. And we were best buddies.
I just got to interrupt you
Yeah.
because you tell the story. This is how close they were. When he was in selection and had to, basically run, I don't know what they put you guys through. You could tell by the footprints in the snow that was your friend.
Yeah.
Like that, if you guys weren't gay lovers, then something's wrong because that is called connection, dude.
Well, and
that's a guy who spent a lot of time behind someone else. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But I hate to ruin the story. But keep going.
Oh, the nape of his neck. Oh, I knew it.
Dude, I know.
This little where the tramp stamp goes.
Yeah.
Man, I knew
my
that.
name, when I tattooed my name, Lieutenant Colonel, don't forget it, bitch.
But that's one of those things. Again, I don't spell it out in the book, but you have Jonathan and David. You have these friendships, Moses and Joshua, and like we all aspire to have this relationship with our Creator through his Son. And that's when I felt like I was lost and I didn't know what to do next, and I see my friend's boot prints, and I know to just shut up and follow. That's the faith that we all want, and it gets stuck. When we were double crossed on an objective, and chaos and an ambush was being set up against us, to see my friend Bill across from me, it was going to be okay.
That made me sad.
Oh.
When you had to shake that guy's hand. God, dude, you guys got to read the book.
Yeah.
There's some stories, man. They had his sister. It's like out of a movie. You lived a movie.
Yeah.
You lived an action movie.
Yeah.
And then I don't want to give the story up.
Yeah.
But I kind of do.
You can.
Their interpreter double crossed them.
Yeah.
They got ambushed. And they look out and they're being surrounded, and their interpreter, who was a good guy, they kidnapped his sister and made him. And the interpreter said to you, he goes, I knew you guys would get out of it. I knew you'd call in the gunship, but I had to do it because I got my sister.
Yeah.
And I had no choice. And then you had to shake his hand. You said, I understand. And then the Iraqis took him and they probably killed him.
And
it
they
made
did.
me so sad.
And he knew it, but he sacrificed himself for his sister.
You couldn't save him? I guess it wasn't your place. Okay.
Double cross is double cross.
Fuck, dude.
Play the game.
You guys. Yeah. Thus the reason I'm not a Delta operator. I would be the worst. I'd be like, all right, guys. I'd be the worst.
Yeah.
Fuck, dude.
But this is the thing, we talked a little bit about the Arab culture. That's what's amazing about the Arab culture is that commitment to family. It's that commitment to tribe. And it's that understanding that there's something next. So Mazen knew he double-crossed us. He
knew the price.
He knew some of us would get hurt, but he also believed very strongly we'd come out on the other side. And he knew he'd pay the price. Yeah. So this big, dumb, 19-year-old Arab that we called the mule. I don't think I mentioned that in there. We called him the mule, the donkey, because he was really our guy that got supplies for us. He died for his sister, man. Like, how do you...
Sucks. That makes me so sad for him and his sister.
And this is one of those
Fucking
things.
war.
This is one of those things. where I'll see him again. I'll see him again. Our God is a big God, and he can respect that. And when Mazen goes before our Creator, there's no way, whatever he misunderstood with his religious beliefs or what he did on earth, that sacrifice and loyalty to his sister, they'll have a discussion.
Yeah, he's okay.
I'll see him.
He's okay.
Yeah.
Heavy shit, dude. You got a gift for me.
Yes.
The book is called Where Have All the Heroes Gone? A Pilgrimage Through the Bible, the Battlefield, and Back Home Again. Jeff Tiegs, retired Delta Force operator. And once again, it's hard to put down. It's hard to put down. Well done.
You're making my day.
It was good. I'm just being honest.
So this is a special gift for you. So you read about that chapter where David was one of my heroes, and he allied himself with the Philistines. And it's like, that's like me joining Al-Qaeda. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. He was doing some double cross and all that. But as I began to read and study more is when I began to realize, oh, he needed to understand how to make weapons out of iron. So the Philistines very closely guarded that technology. So the Israelite weapons were copper and bronze. And a copper bronze sword shield is nothing against iron. So David allied himself with the Philistines. He understands how to create iron tools. And then you see the dynasty of the Israelite kingdom grow. And then his son takes it and makes chariots with iron wheels. And you see the Israelite kingdom even grow more. So once again, you can have a very practical human reasoning for why this Israelite kingdom reached its height at that time, or God was behind it. So when you find, this is an Israelite short sword, they have found these in bronze, and then in that time around 1000 BC, when David and Solomon, they find these in iron. So you see this weapon cross these eras from bronze into iron and this opportunity. So when my sons and I lived in Israel, we wanted to make something special as gifts. So this is olive wood from outside Bethlehem.
Love it.
Some Arab Christians created this. They followed this design. This is a followed design off of a real weapon. And then Proverbs 27:7 is on the back of that, which is, as iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another. So this is a humble gift,
dude. Thank you, sir,
for you, because this is a great opportunity for me and my family, and the book and Skull Games, and really getting the word out to folks.
Yeah, I appreciate this, man. And you should know that I don't need copper. I don't need iron. All I need is fucking
nothing but wood.
Because
10 inches of wood.
I'm a woodsman,
10 inches of hard wood, and you're ready to go.
I'll plunge this thing right where it belongs.
I'm a woodsman.
Right? That's exactly right. This is amazing. I didn't know that was from Proverbs either. Iron sharpens iron. That's what it meant.
27:7.
Wow. We
and that's
that a lot.
That's what we've been talking about for the last couple hours on the drive here.
I love olive wood.
I do.
I was there, and it was like, wow. How long did you live in Israel?
A couple years. Yeah.
Doing what? Stuff for the government?
Yeah. Military stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah, we lived right in Jerusalem.
The plot thickens, ladies and gentlemen. He was studying dance. Dude, this was awesome. You and I could talk forever.
I know. Well, it's a new friendship.
Absolutely.
I enjoy it.
Absolutely.
I mean, Glover, I was on his podcast a couple years ago, and then we text back and forth, and then so there's just a group.
A good group of guys.
Yeah, and Tim, like you said, Tim's an old friend.
Tim. I was talking about Glover, and I was talking about Evan Hafer, and I was talking about Andy Stumpf, and Tim was like, "Yeah, all my friends.
Yeah,
all my friends."
Yeah. So
I can't help but love those guys.
We're gonna do with Skull Games. We hunt all the time, but then we hold these games where people come together. And we hunt in mass, almost like a hackathon type thing.
Jeez, the animals don't have a chance.
And so we're going to do one in Austin in July. So what we're going to do with Tim at the Sheepdog Response Place, because we have these volunteers.
Count me in, I'm coming.
So you need to come and check it out.
Yeah.
And then we're going to do some training. So we have these men and women all over the country that volunteer their time, and they will spend. When we do a sting, the last sting that we did last week, it was noon to midnight, 2 days. And they just sit there and hunt on the computer and drink coffee and drink Red Bulls, you know, and they're doing it as volunteers.
Oh, they're hunting. You're hunting
the predators.
Oh, you're hunting pedophiles and people.
Yes, and
I thought you were talking about hunting.
No, we're hunting pedophiles, and
man.
the cops are out there doing the op.
Wow.
So we're telling them, hey, this is where they think they are. Or, hey, who's this person? So we're just the computer dorks on the backside as the cops are running around arresting guys and recovering these women and trying to offer them services and all that. So what in July, I want to bring a core of those group that's really volunteers and run them through a little sheepdog piece where they can learn jujitsu, they can learn some shooting, and just give back.
That's awesome.
You know, so you need to come out for that for sure.
I got to
Check
brush up on my jujitsu. Yeah. Note to self: don't try to go takedowns with Tim Kennedy in the sand. It's not going to go well for you. My high school wrestling didn't help me out.
Dude, you can call me a dirty, nasty guard puller, but I'm not standing with Tim Kennedy.
Yeah, don't grapple with him in general. He just likes to hurt. He's just a gorilla. Gorilla.
He had a match. I think it was with Camarillo or somebody a couple years ago, and he did the smother tap, and I'm like, I'm not tapping to you ain't gonna smother me. Like that's just, it goes back to suffering. Like that's just you ain't gonna smother me. Well, Tim's got those boobies, man. Like he's got.
Yeah, your Delta operator.
Oh yeah,
he's no good here. It's no good here, Lieutenant Colonel.
He smothered me with those boobies, and I tapped. I was like, okay, I'm not too proud to say.
There are men that can kill you with their tits, and that's what you need to know. There are men that can kill you with their tits, and if you get nothing from this podcast, know that and walk with your head down, you cocky fuck. Jeff Tiegs. That was great.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks for your service, brother.
Yeah, appreciate it.
And thank you for this. What a fucking great time.